Welcome once again to Superhero Stuff You Should Know. I am the man who knows too much about Batman, Ben, and I am back in the driver's seat with my co-hosts, with Drew, the eternal boy who knows way too little.
That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are once again for Benatavius Maximus, the man who knows way too much about Batman to regale us.
Yes, and with us is our old Uncle Joker.
Yes, it's your favorite uncle that's not even related to you. Uncle Joker here at your service. So happy to not be the one running the show, believe it or not.
Gave you the lead on 2 episodes, and you're like, all right, I'm done.
Yep, I'm
done. Oh, man.
This is it. And then as you guys can see on the video, we do have a special guest, and I'm going to give him an intro here. Way back in, it feels way back. This is only just last year, 2020, but oh man. We covered The Dark Knight versus the comics, and I teased we would do an episode called The Best Comics You've Never Read, which is not the name of this episode. We found a much better one. But anyway, I said I would cover the Batman Sunday strips on sort of the first instance that covered the Batman-Gordon-Harvey Dent partnership in depth. And it took us a while, and we needed, it looks like, 2 more people to join us, not just Zach, but also the man who introduced the comic strips to us, to Zach, to many others on the internet. I've been a big fan of his for a long time. Please welcome John Hefner of About Faces. Welcome, John.
Hi.
Hey,
It's a pleasure. Gorge.
John, you run About Faces, which is a blog specifically on a lot of Harvey Dent and Two-Face, someone, Hugo Strange, and other great Batman villains, but mostly Two-Face. But
yeah.
An even more relevant page is the one I'm pulling up here for our YouTube audience, which is the Daily Batman. And that is tying into the Sunday Batman comic strips that we're talking about today. So I will let you introduce what exactly is this Sunday comic strip.
Hi. All right. So this comic strip is like it was a follow-up to the movies, the Tim Burton movie, the first one that came out. It premiered a few months, I believe, after the movie came out and was a huge success. And this wasn't, of course, Batman's first appearance in the newspaper comic strips. He's been doing it since the Golden Age, happened in the Silver Age in the 70s. But this is one that I never saw anyone talk about. And I was always kind of curious about it because I want to read every single Two-Face appearance, and this was the most this was the most obscure one. And I didn't figure it would be anything worth really hunting down for, assuming I could find it. Because I mean, I just sort of figured it would be a pretty standard Two-Face has a 2 scheme thing, and Batman they would be very straightforward, not very in-depth versions of the stories for the mainstream newspaper reading audience.
Like Harvey Apollo in the 40s and stuff. Yeah.
Straightforward, could be a good curiosity, could have some neat stuff, but I really wasn't expecting much. And then I ended up getting my hands on Comics Review magazine, which was a magazine that published and reprinted newspaper comic strips of the previous few months. You'd get collections with Flash Gordon and Calvin and Hobbes and Bloom County. And then for a while they did Batman. And I read some of these and I was blown away. I was not expecting this level of an ongoing story arc that lasted for 2 years before its untimely cancellation. I wasn't expecting something to be this interesting, this unusual. It's different even by today's standards. In some ways it feels like a very old-fashioned strip, and in other ways it was really progressive. I got all the issues of Comics Review, which reprinted them in lovely black and white, but none of the color Sundays in color. And I read them from beginning to end, and I just thought this is a great strip. And the fact that I'd never heard of it really intrigued me, and that made me want to champion it, to actually post about it and show it off. This is a great thing. Why have we never heard of this? So thus I started posting it on my my original Two-Face blog, which is a live journal, to show how old how long I've been at this. And the response was really great. People were really surprised that they'd never heard of this before, especially with creators like Max Allan Collins, Marshall Rogers, Bill Messner-Loebs, and Carmine Infantino involved. And these are big names in Batman. They've all been Messner-Loebs has done some small stuff, but he's of course most well known elsewhere for Wonder Woman and the Flash and the Max.
Oh wow.
Yeah, no. So when I posted it the first time, the first arc was by Max Allan Collins. I don't know if you want to actually ask me where you to. If I'm just going to keep going like this until you tell me to redirect me to other things. I'll just keep going.
I guess go real quick into who are the creative teams involved in this, and then we'll start going into more of what's going on with the strip.
Excellent. So the first creative team that they decided to usher in Batman back to the newspapers was written by Max Allan Collins, who, of course, is no stranger to newspaper comics. He was the hand-picked successor for Chester Gould's Dick Tracy. Okay. And he had a long run on Dick Tracy, and still, I believe he wherever he can, I think he still gets involved with Dick Tracy stuff. While he was there, he brought back Chester Gould's very interestingly similar to Two-Face villain Half and Half.
I remember Half and Half. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, of course, when the crisis happened, and then we got Batman Year One and the reboot, Max Allan Collins was brought in to start writing the main ongoing Batman title, and that's where he reintroduced Jason Todd as the street urchin stealing the hubcaps off the Batmobile, and he did a Two-Face story there too, which with a very old-fashioned kind of Two-Face. It was a fun story, and then I think he had other plans, but he was kicked off, replaced by Jim Starlin and the like.
Right. Yeah.
But I guess someone decided we're doing newspaper strip again. He knows the format. He is familiar with Batman. They hired him to start writing it, and to team up with him, they got one of the greatest, in my opinion, on many others' opinions, greatest Batman artists of all time, Marshall Rogers from Strange Apparitions, as you guys discussed before.
And Dark Detective. Yeah.
Dark Detective. Yeah. Just a brilliant artist gone before his time. And their first story arc lasted just a few months. And it was very much, it was reminiscent of like a sequel, as we're discussing, to the Batman movie. It opens with a loose recap of the Joker's crime wave, and he tries to escape on a helicopter, which is more comic-y and action figure-y, a Joker copter. It's a Joker helicopter.
In fact, I'm going to show that right now. So obviously, in tying into what John was saying, this is pretty much we consider the original 89 sequel comic. And as John was talking about, it does start with sort of a recap. We see for the YouTube audience, we're showing up panels from Marshall Rogers' art. We have Vicky Vale on an interview about how she was saved by Batman, who was fighting the Joker. And the Joker tried to escape on the helicopter. There's the Joker copter with the big giant Joker face on it.
The Marshall Rogers ha 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 is just wrapping around him.
Yeah, very reminiscent of Laughing Fierce Sign of the Joker. Yeah. And then Batman basically prevented him from being able to make it to the copter, and Joker ended up falling, presumably to his death. And after they also say that the Joker was, quote, rumored to be an underling of an organized crime boss assassinated earlier this year. In other words, Jack Palance's character, without us actually naming him. And then it says that Batman gave them the signal after all this. So clearly there's a connection into the movies. But as John was talking about, it's also very comic accurate.
What year did this come out again?
1989.
89. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I think, would it be fair to compare it to like Evil Dead to Evil Dead 2? The way it sort of just compresses, simplifies, and then goes straight into its own sequel from there.
Yeah. It's kind of an Elseworlds version of that universe. It's kind of like what we talked about with the action figures, having the Tim Drake Robin in the Batman Returns line, and Penguin looking more like a classic comic book version. It's like, I like that analogy for Evil Dead 2, where you're just making everything a little bit simpler and a little bit more palatable, and also more, I wouldn't say comic book friendly, but also just like you can kind of put your own style to it. And it leaves the Joker's ultimate fate open for him to come back.
Yeah. So as we can see here, Vicky Vale has red hair like in the comics. Batman is in the blue and gray as traditional. On that, we have Joker in the Joker copter, and I have for the YouTube audience the comparison between the Joker copter there versus the Joker copter in the movie, which just has his face painted on the side. And then Joker actually falls into the bay as opposed to just becoming street pizza at the bottom of the cathedral. So that's actually very similar to what Steve Englehart wrote in his 2 treatments that we covered earlier this year. So check out those episodes if you haven't already. But that's how Englehart, funny enough, wrote it, because that's how Joker, quote unquote, dies at the end of Sign of the Joker. So it makes sense that they sort of call back to that over here. And I believe, according to what you wrote in your Tumblr, this is Earth 1289, as stated in Absolute Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah, apparently, whoever compiled that decided to acknowledge it in that form. So it's an official accounted multiverse, even if only way people know about it besides my stuff is on Wikipedia or something.
Yeah, it is cool though to get that acknowledgement, because this feels absolutely forgotten in a way. Yeah. So, as you were talking about, the first team then is Max Allan Collins and Marshall Rogers. Before we talk about the next team, I thought I would sort of show a little bit of what the first arc is without giving away. I don't want to give away too many spoilers because I want people to sort of go to Daily Batman and discover it for themselves.
Thank you.
But the first story arc does involve a rash of murders of drug dealers, and people seem to think, well, it's obviously Batman. He's the vigilante. He's been off killing people. When in reality, it's Catwoman. Now, this is interesting. This is kind of similar to the Sam Hamm Batman 2 script, where Batman is being blamed for Catwoman's murders, though obviously the execution here is a lot different. Here, she's not a hired assassin by the Penguin. She's a former gang member of the Crime Alley Cats, who was basically a drug addict at one point, got caught, went through the juvie system, and after getting out, she started hunting after the dealers of the Crime Alley Cats and started killing them, becoming kind of her own murderous vigilante rather than the cat thief that she's commonly known for these days. And she also weirdly has, as you can see in the visuals here,
I was looking.
CW on her cowl.
Yep. Crime Alley Cats reminds me of those like drunken Looney Tunes cats that would sing on the fucking roof or the fence.
Oh, and
or
they had the boot thrown at them. Yeah.
Just as effective.
Yeah.
So, her costume is interesting in this. For those who are just listening, she's in sort of the Golden Age outfit, as opposed to the skin tight Michelle Pfeiffer type, where she's in the cape and the green cape and purple dress, as much as you can tell in this black and white version. But there's a part here where she tells Batman that, quote, "I took on this task, assume this dark identity because of the example you set." So that's kind of an interesting thing. Michael Keaton's Batman obviously didn't have a problem killing people in the '89 film, but this version stays traditional with the whole no kill rule. So obviously this sets her and Batman at odds. Personally, I always find it kind of weird when they try to do this whole serial killer Catwoman thing. I mean, yes, she's more willing to kill than Batman and has killed in the comics, but flat out just making her rack up a kill count sort of just feels off to me.
Well, to me, it sort of feels like a proto Huntress thing going on.
Yeah, I can see that definitely. And this feels a lot more Huntressy. Yeah,
she feels Huntressy, but with the still longing to be with Batman thing, which they play into here. So it's a combination of things I can agree doesn't quite work, but it's still pretty interesting.
Yeah. I mean, no, totally. As an alternate sequel to '89,
yeah, and her outfit too. Her outfit is kind of like that too. It's interesting, but doesn't entirely work. But it's still unique, and it's still something I've never seen before.
Right.
So
then,
it is. Go ahead.
Am I thinking that the purple Catwoman outfit that's skin tight with the thigh high boots that came out in the '90s? Is that correct?
It sounds like a Jim Balent one. Yeah.
The Balent. How is it pronounced? Is it Balent? Well,
I could be completely wrong on that.
I thought it was wrong,
some of these names I've only read and not out loud.
Yeah,
I was just thinking that maybe this is like the most recent version of Catwoman's costume that people know, and I guess like they didn't think about updating it. I mean, at the time, was this the most recent? I feel like the only skin tight outfit I saw her in was the '60s show, and then that weird green
Well, don't forget
costume.
the gray suit from year one. Don't forget that one.
True.
Well, that was in the 80s, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think, let's see, before, I mean, she had the skin tight green, the green one, and then I think that wasn't this, the year one was the only full body skin tight one.
Yeah, there's another like one where I think it's sleeveless, it's like blue and has like a really, really weird cat mask. It's like a blue and red outfit.
Yeah, she's got pirate boots.
Yeah.
Right.
Catwoman had some interesting wardrobe choices throughout the years.
Well, writers seem to constantly trying to figure out what to do with her exactly.
Yeah,
just put her in black.
Done. Yeah. So
I have some overarching questions, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Go, Andrew. Go.
What? So it was in newspapers: USA Today, New York Times. What was it in?
That's another thing I've not been able to figure out. I'm not able to find its distribution. Only
really interesting.
All I was able to find out. I mean, I guess if I go back to the DC area and go to Library of Congress, I could probably scour through those newspaper archives there. But with the information that I have on hand, I really don't know what its distribution was. Only that it suffered. I do know that it suffered and fell off considerably over time within the 2 years it existed.
Okay.
And I think it even
all right.
At one point near the end, they were stopping daily. Some papers only had the Sundays.
Okay. And
so
go ahead.
Cool. I was going to say the stories themselves became a lot more condensed, with Sunday strips basically recapping the week, since a lot of people couldn't read the daily ones.
Catwoman is not the only character who is in this. Harvey Dent is in this, and Max Allan Collins has this really interesting foreshadowing difference between his Harvey and the one in the movie, foreshadowing in a way I'll explain in a bit, which is that this Harvey Dent is against the bat signal. He does not condone vigilantism and says that sanctioning a vigilante is of questionable legality. And this might sound very familiar to those who have been reading the recent Batman 89 comic, because Harvey is anti-Batman in that too. So that actually made it into the real Batman 89 sequel comic series. So that's pretty wild.
I honestly, I would expect that Sam Hamm would have read the strips. I mean,
this is interesting too. I was wondering about that. I was like, we suspect that there are a lot of people who have read this that has influenced other stories, because we'll go in for later on, but we have pretty solid evidence that the Batman the Animated Series people read this.
Yeah, it seems likely to me, but of course you don't want to just make a declaration about it without. How are you going to go? Again, it comes up to how are you going to go up to someone like Paul Dini and say, hey, do you remember like 25, 30 years ago? Did you remember reading this strip and it influenced you? It just can't do it.
It's going to be like, maybe, like.
I read a lot of things, kid. Leave me alone.
It's not like they run a weekly podcast where we study this stuff and try to find the origins of these things.
I study it when I come on to the podcast.
So anyway, if it seems like, okay, so far the Harvey Dent thing's interesting, but the Catwoman thing seems a little inferior to what we got to Batman Returns, I understand. I personally think this is one of the weaker arcs, or the weakest arc in this current series, but we get a complete creative change behind the scenes. And John, you told me that we have no idea why at this point.
When I first posted this to Live Journal, I
had a Live Journal too.
Nice. We'll split and ensure someday.
Yeah. A prune juice.
A warrior's drink.
A warrior on his throne.
So when I posted Live Journal way back in the day, every so often some actual writer would pop up. Well, and in this case, Max Allan Collins popped up. He had I believe a burner account that he made and commented on it. And it was just like, basically, thanks for talking about this. I don't ever see anyone talking about it. I barely remember anything about it, but thanks. And I actually wanted to ask him some questions and dig in while I had him there. And he honestly couldn't remember much anything about what happened, or why he was replaced, or why Marshall Rogers was replaced, for that matter. You'd think a complete creative change would, I don't know, it would be more significant. So there must be some reason for it, but I don't know who the editors were in charge. I'm not sure who really oversaw it. I know that DC had the rights and presumably had an editor involved, and they were leaning on the strip syndicate to distribute it. But I have been able to find nothing, and I keep hitting dead ends when it comes to finding out who all was involved and the hierarchy involved.
I have two theories on that.
Yeah.
All right. The two theories are that it just happened. It just existed. If the writers tried to go and find the guy behind the door, there'd be no one there. So it just spontaneously happened. Or Alfred wrote it. Alfred he didn't write it. Alfred was the head chief in charge. Just like those other Elseworld stories. The Legends of Batman. What was it, Ben? The Untold...
What are you talking about?
Are you doing the Neil Gaiman thing where Alfred was the Joker? Or
No, I was thinking about the Untold Legend of Batman, but I think it was in the Batman Brave and the Bold, where in the end you
Knights
see
of Tomorrow.
Alfred... Knights of Tomorrow. That's what I was thinking of. That was
Knights
a
of
stretch.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. It was. I started out as a joke, which it failed miserably. But I was saying, like, Alfred was the head chief in charge of this story. Well, continue on.
Thank you, Zach. So many years of mysteries. Finally. Where the hell were we?
Solved that. Okay, so no Max Allan Collins as writer anymore. No more Marshall Rogers on art. We have an inker, John Nyberg, who's stepped in, but we need a new writer and we need a new artist. So who steps in as the writer?
So they get William Messner-Loebs, who is a I think he was definitely a very important writer of Wonder Woman, first Wonder Woman. He invented Artemis. And he handled the whole suit where she was in like a biker jacket era.
Oh, that era,
yeah. And he wrote some really good stories and was brought back in for the DC retrospective, retroactive when they did a series of one shots from using teams from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. His was chosen for the 90s to show that he was an indicative writer of that era. He also wrote The Flash, Wally West for a while, and he wrote The Max with Sam Keith, with the classic Image comic, which was made into adapted into animated series on MTV. He is a writer who has a rather wry sense of humor, but it kind of keeps it. His humor comes through what seem like seemingly straightforward superhero stories, and I think he's a really underrated. I've certainly gained more appreciation for it even more since this. Really underrated writer who had some really important runs. And teaming up with him was Carmine Infantino, who is the 60s Batman?
Andrew's favorite.
Yeah.
Best name. The best name.
He's famous. Yeah, he's
so hard.
He's famous for the new look Batman cover with Batman with the yellow oval with Robin on the rooftop, which I have the Funko on, as you guys can see on the YouTube version. But yeah, he's famous for that. And another note, just to add real quick, is that I discovered in my research for this that Messner-Loebs also won the Bill Finger Award for Writing Excellence in 2017.
Nice.
And has accumulated a lot of awards over the years for his contributions to the comics. And yet he's not exactly at the tip of people's, tongues or the top of our heads when we think of Batman writers on it. And it's a shame given what we're about to dive into in terms of what this strip adds to the mythos.
Yeah. So this guy was the second writer on the whole deal overall.
Yeah. Second and final one, because he's part of it throughout the rest of the entire run.
And what was his overall, did he have the feel of it change at all, or like his writing style, or did he kind of follow suit pretty much with the first guy?
Well, it's weird. They both have a certain mix of old-fashioned sensibilities. They both draw on a more classic, some golden age, some silver age, some bronze age. but they also have some modern sensibilities that they bring in too, which kind of run throughout in some subtle ways and some not so subtle ways. Max Allan Collins, for example, he would write hardcore mystery, hardcore like noir, gritty stuff, but he also can be kind of a cornball, and I say that affectionately. And Messner-Loebs, by teaming up with Carmine Infantino, the strip, as opposed to Marshall Rogers, who was a much more detailed artist. Infantino was, I'm not sure how would one describe Infantino's art. It was certainly detailed for the 60s, but by the 90s, early 90s, it felt very retro.
Yeah, it definitely does.
And with Messner-Loebs writing for the family newspaper audience, it, on its surface at least, looks like a pretty family-friendly, old-fashioned strip. Which is when he, will sneak in some more mature, not sexy mature, but more mature political themes as well. So, I have completely lost the question. What's up?
How much? I have one more actually. How much was on like one? I guess you might not know this, but like on one newspaper, if it was a Sunday strip, would you get like a whole page of a comic? You have to read like 22 issues of the newspaper before you finish one story, or?
Well, the stories would last about 2 to 3 months.
Okay.
So they'd run, you'd have a few, like usually 3 panel strip for the dailies, and then roughly 6 to 8 panel for the Sundays.
Okay.
And
okay.
When you read them all together, you're meant to be reading them day to day. So because the next strip will have to try to remind you where you left off on the previous day. So reading them all together as a comic can be a little repetitive.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because there'll be recaps on the Sunday ones where they add
previously
more,
on Batman.
Yeah.
And then you go, and then you see previously on Batman, and then you advance about 20 seconds of yeah, come back next week.
Right. Okay,
it's like worth it. All right, so Bill Messner-Loebs teams up with Carmine Infantino and John Nyberg to finish out, or at least they didn't know at the time, to finish out the rest of this run. And starting with the second story arc, we start seeing some major changes in the storyline that will also affect the rest of the Batman mythos. And one of the first things is that there's a new element to Harvey Dent, where he's not just some anti-Batman DA. He's also golfing with Bruce Wayne, showing that he's best friends with Bruce Wayne. Now, I've noted that Sam Hamm had Bruce and Harvey as friends in his 1986 draft for the 89 Batman movie, but that didn't really make it to the final film at all. Hamm doesn't even get to write that until he does the 89 comic this year. So this is actually the first produced instance of Bruce and Harvey being friends, at least as far as I could find. I think as far as you could find too, John.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Well, it's an adaptation of the fact they were all that Harvey and Batman were friends to some degree.
Yeah.
All the way back in 1942 when Two-Face was first premiered, they were considered friends. And it wasn't really it was like work friendship maybe.
Yeah.
But they still consider each other friends. And so some writers would sort of play with that a bit, that they had esteem and bond as mutual crime fighters. But never made it much more personal than that. But some writers would have it drive Batman's desire to redeem or save Harvey from himself.
Yeah.
Others would just go, he was a guy who got ass in his face. Now I got to punch him in said face. That's all.
He really likes the number 2.
Yeah,
that's it. That's all you need.
Well, that's
What's Harvey
weird.
eating there, Ben?
I believe that is a giant pile of moose. I'm not Ben, sorry. I believe that is a giant pile of moose, and not what it looks like. So.
Let us call attention to Bruce's face, half obscured as well.
Hey,
in this frame, at least.
It's foreshadowing, Andrew.
This
has another identity.
This is the real relationship.
I'm going to point this out to everybody.
Story.
This happens across a lot of movies. If somebody is being duplicitous, doesn't have to be Batman shit. This happens a lot. They'll be half obscured or half half in shadow a lot of the time in many dramatic movies.
Or if it's the Long Halloween, it's like every issue of Harvey Dent having him being half obscured in shadow.
Yeah.
I was about to say a Long Halloween drinking game for every time Harvey has his face in shadow. God help you if he makes a 2 pun at any
point. Being subtle. So subtle he pronounces the B in subtle.
We only see half of Harvey's face here too. I think that's also symbolism. He doesn't turn the entire episode.
Always that profile.
Yeah, he's already Two-Face here. We just don't know it.
Kids, watch this closely. This is what's going to be gone soon.
So let me eat my humongous bowl of chocolate mousse. I'm on that dirty bowl.
I guess that's what he was sharing with Poison Ivy. But
oh yeah,
she hooked me in with that chocolate mousse. This is foreshadowing of Batman the Animated Series, the Telltale games, and other versions where this happened. And it's explicitly said later that Bruce and Harvey were prep school friends and were roommates in college. So that idea all comes from this, and this is one of the first of many contributions that Bill Messner-Loebs provides for the Batman mythos. Naturally, the villain of this next story is the other Batman Returns villain, who's the Penguin.
Penguin.
Yes. This Penguin is also somewhat traditional. He is not, spilling black bile out of his mouth, that type of thing. He's the regular Penguin at this point. He's a fence who ends up kidnapping an ambassador's son. But again, the villain here is actually less important compared to what happens with Harvey, because stopping the Penguin leads to this seminal moment where Harvey, Commissioner Gordon, and Batman meet on the Gotham City Police Department rooftop. And I believe this is another first in comic history where this happens.
It's the second.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Actually, well, no. It might be the first, but by a narrow margin, because the same year, Batman Annual 14 came out.
I was going to ask you actually when that coincides with Eye of the Beholder.
Yeah, the same year. Yeah, this is January 90. This might actually be the first. I'm not sure when the Annual came out.
That's true.
But I think they were both just. I don't think one was taken from the other. I think it was just a really happy coincidence of writers who decided they wanted to involve Harvey Dent as DA with Batman and Jim Gordon in some capacity.
Right. In fact, and here's an image for the YouTube audience. On the left is that Batman Annual that John was talking about, Eye of the Beholder, which has the meeting of Batman, Harvey, and Gordon on the rooftop in 1990. And this comic art by Andrew Helfer. What happened here? This comic art by Andrew Helfer was basically remade as the Long Halloween in terms of the Two-Face origin specifically. So that is then copied for the Long Halloween, and then I'm pulling up here, and then the Nolans read that and talk as if the Long Halloween was the one that created it, and then put it into the Dark Knight. But it really starts with this. Yeah,
that's a whole other topic I could go off on.
That's a whole other episode that we're going to do in Halloween.
Oh yeah,
I know. I'm getting my ranting ready. Okay.
Looking forward to it. And also, both scenes end with Batman disappearing and someone commenting on how he does that. So you've got Harvey being like, I hate it when he does this. And then you've got the Long Halloween being like, he does that. Annoying, isn't it? From Gordon. So
you're right. I hadn't noticed that exactly. Or I had forgotten.
And this exchange too of, I'm sure you noticed this too. The dialogue of one person saying gone and Gordon saying he does that is also in Eye of the Beholder, but not with Dent. It's with Dr. Klemper.
Yeah.
Weird lifts from Loeb. But anyway, that's a whole other episode coming in October. Other significant thing that happens in this strip is potentially the first or second, depending on the timing with that Batman Annual. One of the first times where Harvey Dent is given a coin, at least I think, of significance to him, as opposed to it being the original Golden Age origin where the two-headed coin, not a lot of people remember this, but the two-headed coin in the original origin was Boss Maroney's coin.
It sure was.
It was not Harvey's. So in this version, it's a gift that Bruce and Harvey's wife Alice give to him. as opposed to the more common associated one, which comes from the Eye of the Beholder, Batman Annual number 14 issue, where it was something that his abusive father used on him.
Mhm.
So this is another significant contribution from Bill Messner-Loebs that may have coincidentally coincided with Eye of the Beholder, but it is still notable in here.
Yeah, I wonder what exactly happened in 1990 that made two writers just decide to take in this direction after all these decades of it. Just
Mhm.
the coin being, the evidence from the trial, and it's I don't know what happened, but I'm sure glad it did because it's
Yeah.
led to my favorite takes on the character.
Yeah, it's definitely deepened the significance of the coin as opposed to it just being like, well, this mobster I was trying at it, and I'm just going to use this thing, So it's definitely has deepened the character on this, and I think maybe some part of it is they saw like, hey, this is speculation on my part. Don't take it as gospel, but like they see Billy D. Williams in this '89 movie, and they're just like, well, maybe Harvey Dent's going to become Two-Face in the next movie. So we better like revisit the Two-Face origin or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then they revisit it in 1990, and Warner Brothers is just like, don't do Two-Face. Stick with the 60s villains. Go with Penguin and Catwoman. So that's my speculation on maybe that's why that got people into it.
Gospel.
It sounds entirely possible.
Mm-hmm. So this is the coin, and then the third story arc is where we get really interesting with the villains. Here we have the prisoners getting broken out by a group called the Brotherhood of Chaos, and the head of the Brotherhood of Chaos is a masked man calling himself the Red Hood. Now, standard Batman fans know that that's actually not probably going to be Jason Todd. It's going to be the Joker. The Joker is back, and this actually makes a lot of sense since this is similar continuity to '89. Yeah, so remember, this is kind of rooted in '89, so the Joker was Jack Napier, not the Red Hood. So in this version, the Red Hood is a disguise that the Joker takes on later. But again, kind of foreshadowing of an idea of a Red Hood showing up as an antagonist after Joker's already created. Obviously very different in storylines like Under the Red Hood. And I believe the Batman Adventures tie-in with Batman the Animated Series had another version of Red Hood that was supposedly going to be Andrea Beaumont's mom, but that's a whole other story.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait, was that the Ty Templeton and Dan Slott?
Yeah.
I thought they wouldn't talk about that. I thought people were asking Ty Templeton for years, what's up with the Red Hood? And he hadn't. Someone got him to actually open up about that.
He was just like, well, this ain't going to happen anyway, so I might as well open up about it. I think that's what happened.
Well, damn.
Yeah.
Well, damn.
Yeah. So that's what
Go
it turned
back
out
one,
to be.
Ben.
Go
back to the panel before that.
Yeah, this one. Mm-hmm.
His chin doesn't look as pointy as the Joker's.
Well, he's wearing a mask that makes him look like the Chameleon in Spider-Man. So
it's a compression hood.
All right. I was just looking at him and I was like, man, that is the Joker. I don't remember this part. This was on About Faces as well, John?
Yeah. I believe I've posted them all unless they got swallowed up by either Tumblr or Photobucket. Because
I think I must have just focused on like the Two-Face stuff. I remembered Catwoman. I remember the early Joker thing with the helicopter, but I don't remember the Red Hood stuff at all. That's really kind of cool that they brought that into the kind of canon of the '89 universe.
Yeah, and this is how he returns, since he technically didn't really die. He just fell into the water in this version.
Ben, are you going to bring up the actual plot that goes on around the whole Red Hood stuff and why he manages to get this much power?
You know what? I'll let you go into it.
Well, there's a cadre of far-right businessmen who are actually explicitly described as being fascist in the story, who want to be super tough on crime. And they are saying, see, criminals are roaming the streets. Someone broke the criminals out of the streets. We need to be tough on crime. The mayor was weak. We need to get Harvey Dent and make him mayor, because he'll be super tough on crime and he'll fire Jim Gordon and he'll go after Batman and take care of all that. Well, and it turns out they're answering to the Red Hood, Joker himself, who are plotting to release the criminals to create the chaos as a power grab. So it is a whole storyline where Harvey Dent is pulled in and flirting with going full fascist, as again, it's explicitly described as being in the story, to become mayor. So he has this whole temptation where he's trying to, do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? He doesn't, of course, know that he just knows he's possibly throwing in with far right politicians, but he doesn't know that they're involved with the Joker. And he finds out, he goes, oh God, how I got so close to being used by them. And this story also foreshadows in some ways the Dark Knight with its treatment of some of the ex-prisoners, many of whom, when the Joker tells them, go out, spread chaos, kill everyone, they're just like, wait, why? We don't want to do that. And they go, no, we're not doing that. Leave. And so it's another thing that sort of feels reminiscent. Obviously a coincidence. I can't imagine that Nolan or Goyer read this themselves.
It's like our source material is going to be these Sunday comic strips nobody's read over 1989. That's where we get our Oscar-winning movie.
Nolan had him pinned up on his bedroom walls like Charlie, and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like that's no.
Then we're going to do this. Joker's going to talk about chaos because there was the Brotherhood of Chaos in the 1989 comic strip. It all's going to fit together.
Inside of my head at all times.
Trust me, same here.
Can we talk about Batman? I'm dying to talk about Batman.
So if the audience has not caught on yet, there are now 2 of me on this show as of this episode. So yes.
I'm saying.
So there's stuff about chaos. There's Joker's men attacking hospitals and not wanting to attack the hospital. So that's, as John was pointing out, similar to Tiny Lister's character at the end of Dark Knight, where he's like, I'm not going to stand for this. I'm going to throw out the detonator and that type of stuff. And there's also the interesting beat of Harvey being like, I'm clearly corruptible, so I'm going to resign. And Bruce talks him out of it. Being like, no, you're the hope for the city. And we're just like, you could have prevented Two-Face from happening.
Exactly. Harvey actually wants to resign. He wants to be held accountable. He could have just, everyone was already like, oh, Harvey, glad you're back. Everything's fine. He went, no, I almost threw in with this. I almost did this. I can't, I'm corruptible. I can't be involved in this. And Bruce is like, you're fine. And his wife's like, yeah, what are you going to do? Go fishing? Whatever. You just stay in the job. Yeah, you just stay in the job that's slowly destroying you, honey. And just play with the coin we gave you for your birthday, and everything's gonna be fine.
Bruce is like, at least you're not Batman. Like, your job is easy. My job is hard. So it's pretty fun to read, but also I think I've always kind of wanted to read a lot of stories of Batman teaming up with, well, this isn't really a team up with him and Harvey, but at least like a slower, more gradual development of Harvey into Two-Face, because a lot of times it's just like kind of like what we see in The Long Halloween, where it's just like, okay, here's the partnership for like, a quarter of the story, and then he gets the acid hit in the face, and it's just like, okay, but like, what about other stories beforehand?
I'd like to see more of the actual process of the trio with the police arresting and Batman capturing, the police arresting, and Harvey prosecuting. I would have liked to have seen more of the Law and Order in Gotham kind of process, like at Bong Bong Law and Order. I mean,
I just need Tommy Lee Jones a little TV clip, and that's it for me. Just that's all.
That's fine too. That's fine too.
Just kidding. I want the animated series version. I love seeing Harvey. I
think one of the big
episodes.
Sorry, was that?
I'm just saying I love the animated series version because I like seeing Harvey in those first couple episodes before he's,
That's true.
Two-Face.
That's true. Nice. Though it is nice, but also it's kind of like, I wish there was more.
Oh yeah.
But especially because of the fact that Bruce and Harvey are friends. It's not like, it's not like the Dark Knight version where they meet. He's allies with him, but there's not really that connection. Like, clearly there's a backstory there with the one in the animated series.
I think there's a few issues from the beginning of like the Batman adventures where Harvey is still Harvey. It's before it's supposed to take place before Two-Face Part 1. So there's a little bit of expansion, but not enough.
I remember being a kid watching Fox Kids, watching Batman, and and seeing like, wait, that guy's going to become Two-Face. I think I knew that. And
Mhm.
like, oh, they're friends. I'm interested. And it becomes Two-Face. And I wanted more of that. I'm really intrigued by this dynamic.
Mhm.
I always had a thing for like when we watched the Spider-Man cartoon. Oh, Spider-Man and Dr. Octopus is his teacher. Well, I want more of that relationship. Give me
Yeah.
more of that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
When are
Some
things going to go
flashbacks,
south?
please?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Always been
So
into it.
after the storyline is probably one of my favorites in this, which is the trial of the Joker. Now,
Mhm.
this is really interesting because of just how different it is from regular continuity. You have the Joker's lawyers as characters dealing with the moral dilemma of like, we need the money, but we also have to try, like, we have to defend this guy on it. And in this take, Harvey Dent is so hell bent on taking down the Joker that he starts resorting to, also foreshadowing of the Dark Knight, wiretapping the
Mhm.
Joker's lawyers, believing that the ends will justify the means on this. So again, sounds very familiar. But Batman is the one who actually puts a stop to this and believes that Harvey is going too far, with people being like, yeah, but you hate the Joker. And Batman says, I hate this more. So this is the beginning of Harvey's descent into becoming Two-Face, and Batman in this version is very much trying to defend the Joker's right to a fair trial,
Mhm.
which I think is really interesting on that. I mean, yes,
Yeah,
this is
vigilante.
pre-Joker. Yeah. Pre-Joker killing Jason Todd and all that type of stuff. So maybe his attitude changes later. But in the beginning, he's just like, no, he deserves a fair trial.
Well, the
Should have
problem
a fair
is
trial no matter what, right?
Yeah.
the Joker is it's not just the Joker himself too. It's the fact that the Joker's thing, his trial involves not the Joker's lawyers, who are just guys, people doing their jobs,
Right. Yeah.
but also the citizens of Gotham too, who are getting whipped up in a almost like a lynch mob of anger
Mhm.
by Harvey Dent,
Yeah.
who is trying to stoke the public anger against him, with entirely understandably on Harvey's part, but it also leads to one of the jurors being harassed to the point that she has a heart attack.
Yeah. That part too.
The people in
It,
fun.
Gotham is definitely its own character in this specific storyline. I know people say like, "Oh, Gotham's its own character" when they're just talking about like the city and the architecture, but here it's like the city itself, the different citizens within. That's definitely a factor in the storyline, and that's what makes it so unique. Because it's just like I've never read anything like this. I've never actually thought about how do you put the Joker on trial and what's Batman's role in this, and how would Harvey do that, and what do you do if you're the Joker's lawyer, and that stuff. That's all done. Like this is the medium of this is a Sunday comic strip. It's just like it seems wild that this is where it is medium wise.
It seems deeper than normal, basically, than the other comics at this time.
Yeah, especially comic strips, but even the comics, like the regular issues themselves, I would say.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay.
Now,
I did like the inference that the Joker laughs the minute that he wakes up. There's a couple panels back, but the guards are like, "Oh, he's awake again." Sounds like death laughing, and I was like, "So Joker just opens his eyes, like, ah!" Just starts laughing immediately.
The thing about this storyline too, the Joker doesn't do anything.
The Joker is exactly.
He has no
He's
grand scheme.
Yeah.
He's just enjoying himself. He's enjoying watching all this swirling around happening in front of him as things are falling apart. And he doesn't have to do a damn thing anymore but kick back and laugh. And that's interesting.
Do you think at the end of The Dark Knight, the Joker was just involuntarily committed to Arkham? Do you think there was ever a trial or anything like that? I mean, he's never mentioned again except for in the novelization, but I always wondered, like, if there was a sequel, if he would have been on trial and stuff like that. But yeah, do you think he'd just be involuntarily committed?
I mean,
it's a possibility. I'm not really sure, but it is funny you bring that up, Zach, because I was going to bring up the original plans that David Goyer had that would have had the Joker on trial.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've read about it before.
Yeah. So here it says that the idea was, quote, the next one would have Batman enlisting the aid of Gordon and Dent in bringing down the Joker. but not killing him, which is a mistake they made in the first movie. Instead, we're going to kill Two-Face, but that's a whole other thing. But so that stays pretty true to what happened in The Dark Knight. But he says in the third, the Joker would go on trial, scarring Dent in the process, thus creating Two-Face.
I am glad you found this. I remember reading this, but I have not actually been able to find it again. And let me tell you, I have been sad that this is not what happened for years. Because I mean, an entire dedicated movie of Harvey Dent and a dedicated movie of Two-Face. I with the Joker just being there laughing on the sidelines, just would have. It breaks my heart that it didn't happen that way.
Even more,
he would have had makeup on.
The first one. Oh, does he have makeup on in the trial?
If he's on trial, I feel like he would have been washed off.
That's a really good question. And I don't know if I would have wanted to see that. I mean, yeah, you do see that glimpse of him when he's the cop in the parade, but
it's his constitutional right to wear makeup.
I think it would have been more effective if they didn't linger on him very long if he was on trial but no makeup, shot from different angles and stuff. I don't know.
Maybe
it is something I think about as an artist. I've thought about these different, I guess, forms of him that we never are going to see, but things that could have been. Because I remember reading this too and thinking oh man, that would have been a really great 3-part film series.
Yeah, more so for just the development of Harvey. And I said even more ideally Harvey's in the first one, but take what you can get, I guess, in this scenario where he's introduced in the second one, we get the sort of the rise of him, and then the fall in the third one, and he becomes Two-Face. And
he was supposed to be in Batman Begins, right? They replaced him with that Finch guy. Do you remember that?
Well,
so
go ahead,
you go
first. It's your show. You talk.
Thank you. It doesn't matter, but I feel like you have the same ideas that I have, where it's just I believe what I remember is that in the opening of the Absolute Long Halloween, there's talk about the fact that Harvey Dent was originally thought to be in it and they couldn't quote unquote fit him in, and so they created Rachel to take his place. There is one line mentioning Dent in the David Goyer first draft of Batman Begins, where Rachel's we got to bring in Harvey Dent, and her boss, the Finch character, is just let's not bother him with that type of stuff, and that's it. But that's pretty much what it is. So it seems like that was likely gonna. I mean, if you just outright replace Rachel with Dent, yes, it could work for the most part, except for the love interest side. But what I'm saying is that you would also have a complete sausage fest of a movie.
Yeah, that would also be a problem for sure. Yeah. But on the other hand, if them. That's the thing. They're also childhood friends in that one too. Rachel and Bruce are childhood friends. So she plays the role of being the Harvey role of being the best friend and the moral pillar in the district attorney's office and the partner of the Batman in some respect. Yeah. So but I think she was just meant to fill a basic role, not meant to be Harvey himself.
Yeah. I think so. So it seems okay, this comic strip is the closest we might get to see to this idea of Joker's on trial, Dent's trying him, right? Maybe this is how he becomes Two-Face, right? Not necessarily, because the trial ends and Joker's declared insane. Dent and Gotham are all pissed and outraged that Joker doesn't get the death penalty. And that's the end of the trial. Joker does not scar Harvey Dent in the trial. He doesn't have really much involvement at all, actually, of turning Harvey into Two-Face, because Joker's not the one responsible for turning Harvey into Two-Face. Gotham turns Harvey into Two-Face. Now, if you're listening to this and you're okay, I really want to check this out to find out more, then head on over to Daily Batman and find out about it and read the full storyline, and then come back for a little bit more of a spoilery discussion on this strip's take on the origin of Two-Face. And we'll catch you after the break.
Here at Chat of the Wild, our Game Club podcast, we have been using our lens of truth to do deep dives on the Legend of Zelda series, in order, covering 1 to 2 dungeons each episode. Our show also looks at Zelda-likes, such as Crusader of Senti, Golden Axe Warrior, and the bizarre journey of For the Frog, The Bell Tolls. Join us right now as we play Ari and the Secret of Seasons, our first new release since Season 1, or check out our past seasons breaking down nearly 20 action-adventure titles. New episodes drop every Wednesday, here on the Greenlit Podcast Network.
Lord have mercy, y'all. Do you like hounds? Do you enjoy pooches? Do you find yourself enjoying time spent with that of canines? Talking about dogs, y'all.
As you might have heard, Superhero Stuff You Should Know has now teamed up with Barkbox. For every month, you get a box for your special canine.
Pooches.
Or hounds.
That's right. One free extra month if you go to barkbox.com/superherostuffpod.
Follow the link and you'll get a free extra month valued at $35 and valid for all multi-length plans.
So get the Barkbox for your hound, for your pooch, for your canine.
Your doggo will thank you.
And we're back.
We are. Yes, we are back. And so we're going to continue the discussion on how exactly does Harvey Dent become Two-Face in the original comic strip written by Bill Messner-Loebs. So as stated before, the Joker does not use his acid flower on Harvey Dent during the trial to scar him. So how does Dent become Two-Face? Let's talk about the storyline called The Second Birth of Two-Face, which is, I guess, kind of meta because it's not like Two-Face was born before this. What's your opinion on this, John?
Should that second birth of Harvey Dent, maybe. I just don't know.
Yeah.
I am at a loss for that.
Because we're like, well, technically it's the birth of Two-Face.
Maybe if it was just the second birth, that might have been cool.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's way better. Yeah.
That would have worked. You gotta work the villain's name in there somewhere, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess so. So for the YouTube audience, we're looking at a comic strip that introduces a man named Jack Estrada. It says, quote, "This is Jack Estrada. Tomorrow he's going to the circus." Notice it's Haley's circus with the flying Graysons. It says, "Tomorrow he's going to the circus. Today he's going to kill the Joker." So Estrada is an enraged Gothamite who is pissed that the Joker did not get the death penalty. So he decides to basically do the job himself. Walks to the courthouse with a bottle of acid to assassinate the Joker. What could possibly go wrong? When he throws it, Batman intervenes and tackles Joker, trying to save his life, causing the acid to fly towards Alice Dent, Harvey's wife. So to save his wife, Harvey takes the hit himself. And this is really interesting. When I got to this part, I was like, this is so off canon, but also I really love it in a weird way because it's not a random mobster who throws it at Dent and Dent now turns into this mobster hunting executioner like we see in The Long Halloween and The Dark Knight. It's technically Gotham plus Batman's moral code that makes Dent into Two-Face in this. The outrage
it's also an act of heroism of Harvey too, to save his wife.
Yeah.
Which is interesting given how he was, morally falling apart with the wiretapping.
Yeah, that too.
He still had a last act of heroism. And also that Jack Estrada is horrified that he hurt Harvey Dent.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
Already Estrada has more depth in these panels than Boss Maroni usually has.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
I'm like, this is, again, fascinating character study. A comic strip does not, newspaper comic strip has no business being this good and this in-depth, really. But that's why we're covering this. So Dent is scarred, and it actually looks pretty damn horrific for a Sunday comic strip and also for Carmine Infantino. My God.
I like this. This is cool.
He looks like, I don't know, Freddy Krueger on one half of the side. It looks, for those who are listening in, check out the YouTube version or check out Daily Batman in order to see the visuals. But it is horrific looking, what his Two-Face looks like in the hospital bed. Yeah.
I wonder if parents were upset about kids seeing a Two-Face that looked like this in the newspaper, assuming that it was the kids reading it and not just the parents.
Yeah.
Or not upset at all.
Kids following along with this wiretapping plot.
Yeah.
Made of tougher stuff back then.
Yeah, serious wiretapping ethics for kids.
Yes, of course.
Government overreach.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
let's
Harvey,
talk about it.
Yes. Harvey is Two-Face here and becomes a new villain for Batman to stop. I won't go too much into what he does. I'm just going to jump to another significant moment in this, which is Batman, of course, has to stop him. And in order to stop him, he throws another coin at Two-Face in order to confuse him, which is what we see at the end of Batman Forever, as well as at the end of Batman the Animated Series, Two-Face Part 2. And both the newspaper strip and the episode have Harvey's wife or fiance comforting him after he has this breakdown about the coin.
Yeah.
Which is
Batman
also why I'm just like,
Forever, it was Batman Forever, Sugar and Spice, I guess, crawled down there to
comfort. Yes,
to comfort his corpse. Yeah.
It's like, ugh, please help me. So.
There's roping down one after the other. Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean, it's because of the Bruce and Harvey being friends. Plus this moment, I'm just like, I don't see how they did not read this. I
Yeah.
think it's too coincidental for this to not be a case.
I agree.
And also the fact that in both versions, Harvey does not get acid in the courtroom either. I mean, it's very different still in the animated series versus the newspaper strip, but they're both sort of early instances of just like, well, he needs to get scarred. He doesn't necessarily need to get scarred while the trial's happening. So that's interesting because I feel like these days it's almost more popular now to just make him scarred through other means. It's been a while since I've seen the courtroom origin, just in general.
Yeah, I'm at a point where I would long to see a classic acid in the face from a mobster courtroom scenario. I feel like everyone's reinventing something that's been so long gone they don't even know what they're trying to subvert or do a twist on.
Yeah, exactly.
This newspaper version sort of, I feel like they'd use this for if they ever made Harvey, like a Two-Face movie in the style of Joker, because it kind of feels like Gotham made Joker.
That's John's dream movie there.
I mean, look, we're getting the Cobblepot show. I'm wondering, is it going to happen? I don't know.
First, they got to bring him into that continuity. This is another Batman early days thing that does not have Harvey in the first movie yet. I'm like, come on.
For shame.
I'm used to it. I accept.
I know.
I accept my lot.
Is Harvey supposed to kind of be there from year one? Like,
he's literally in year one. So
he is in year one. Okay, I got you.
At least since the '80s continuity.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we can thank Frank Miller for that.
There might be a reference to him in Matt Reeves, maybe, but yeah, he's obviously not showing up unless they've really hidden that part of the fucking movie.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah, we might get a post-credits hint or something, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's a possibility. But this is the end of the Two-Face arc. We have a couple other arcs, but first, Two-Face gets sent to, quote, a new facility that just opened. It's called Arkham Asylum. Clearly, they'll be able to help him. Poor Harvey. And also his cell is right next to the Joker's. So he's not having a happy time.
I want to kill myself at this point.
How many cells do they have? Come on now.
Need a fucking straight jacket to not kill myself. If I had to be in a cell next to this fucking idiot.
Look, they put them in next to each other. It's a brand new facility. Joker's in cell 1, Harvey's in cell 2, and so on. That's how it works. It's like, we have this first come, first served.
It's a castle like asylum, but we only have 2 cells. One for Joker, one for Two-Face. Bring in another villain, we don't have room.
They can't mess up their system, like, keep them in cell 2.
Yep. So after this, we have a story arc that Andrew and I actually covered in an old Patreon episode where we were covering specifically the different origins of Robin. So here is the newspaper strip version of the origin of Robin, which is somewhat traditional. You still have the same stuff where the circus is getting extorted, this time by a mobster named Mr. Bryant instead of Boss Zuko. You also get another instance where the Robin outfit comes from the circus rather than from Batman himself. It's the exact outfit, yeah. So that's much.
Everything.
Yeah. So in this version, it's justified by the fact that his parents are like, "Hey, we're going to perform in Gotham. Gotham's associated with costume characters, so let's create a costume character for our show in Gotham."
It's justified by the fact that no one has come to see the Flying Graysons.
They pretty much die before he's able to wear it, which is what happens in the 2004 the Batman cartoon. But this is kind of continuing the trend we've talked about before on this podcast, where Steve Englehart kind of starts it in his script treatment for the '89 movie, where he says that Dick Grayson wears a red vest as part of the acrobat uniform, and he carries that over into the Robin outfit as a tribute. And then Sam Hamm just outright has Dick Grayson wearing the Robin outfit as the trapeze uniform. And then year 3, I believe, is the one that ended up just being like, you know what? It's the same uniform. which is problematic for anybody who recognizes the act later on when he's Robin. But that's why I like the Englehart version. But anyway, in this version, still his parents still die from falling from the trapeze. Dick dons the Robin suit to go after the killers, and he runs into Batman, who does actually get injured, which leaves Robin to take care of him. And now we have this weird chase movie type of thing where Robin is taking care of Batman in the Batmobile and doesn't really know what to do with him. And he's also from out of town. So when he finds out that Batman is Bruce Wayne, he's like, I don't know who that is. So,
it's the Justice League Flash thing. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Also kind of ties into how, reporters didn't know who Bruce Wayne looked like in the 89 movie. I don't think that was a deliberate reference, but if there is a tie into that, there's already a tie into that continuity. So it kind of makes sense to this version.
It's of an era where, a quainter era where most millionaires were not celebrities.
Right. True. There's even, it threw me too, because I rewatched the first appearance of Penguin in the 60s show. And Adam West shows up as Bruce Wayne to Penguin's umbrella shop. And Penguin's like, I don't know who he is. He's probably some rival umbrella store salesman or something. Like, they don't know who Bruce Wayne is in the 60s show either. So, like,
I mean, like, this is what John's saying, right? He's not like an Elon Musk type for a long time in the history, right? He's just a wealthy dude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's not an international billionaire. That's not, that's a later thing, right?
Yeah. It's a more recent thing compared to what we're used to seeing. Yeah.
I'd rather them go back to just being like wealthy and not like Elon Musk, Richard Branson level.
Go way back to 39 where he's in a brownstone, the bat suit's in the trunk.
Yeah, just
no Alfred.
Have him a little rich. It just gets messy when he's a super famous as Bruce Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're supposed to suspend a lot of disbelief with this stuff, but there's just a better way out there.
Yeah.
It strains credulity. Yeah.
Let's see. So that Robin, as you can tell, probably you can guess, he saves Batman, ends up becoming a sidekick, end of story, but the next storyline is really fun, as it's called The Deadly Riddle, and features the most hilarious, dumbest version of the Riddler ever.
Features Killer Croc.
I love this Riddler.
It is hilarious. Yeah.
He is terrible at his job, and it's great. And listen. I love a smart Riddler. I love a Riddler who is fair, who is cunning, who has brilliant riddles, who actually is the smartest person in the room. It should be everything I hate. And it's comedy gold. This whole Riddler is comedy gold. He's a complete loser.
That's
and
awesome.
The story knows it, and it has so much fun with it.
It does, and it's one of those rare situations where they can get away with that because of how fun the story is. Because usually, like we did a Patreon episode on the animated adaptation of Hush, and we were just like, why do you keep referring to Riddler as a C-lister? Riddler is a much more popular. He's way more of an A-lister than Hush. So why is he considered a C-lister?
He's an A-lister. He was in the 66 show that skyrockets you to A-list.
He's the first villain in the 66 show. Yeah.
Look, there is a long discussion we could have about the way the Riddler and Penguin with the relationship with the 60s show with the writers who came up with the 70s and 80s. Like Danny O'Neill, we love Danny O'Neill, but he hated the Riddler and made it clear the Riddler. He insisted in the stories with Jim Gordon saying in an issue of The Question that the Riddler wasn't also ran a C-lister. And I think he was a hangover from the era of Batman 66 that they wanted to forget.
That's an interesting point. Right. Yeah. Like maybe it's because they're trying to overcorrect in a way.
Yeah. It's just hard to write riddles in and of itself, right?
It's also why it's not around that much in the animated series. They were just like, we don't really want to deal with this bullshit. I feel like that's the whole reason why he's not in No Man's Land either. They're just like, Riddler is the only one who doesn't go to Gotham. He leaves after Arkham breaks out because we don't have to deal with that bullshit.
Which is why it's hard to write a smart Riddler, because you have to actually bring some actual intelligence and hard work into it, and I can't imagine doing it. It's like trying to write Lex Luthor if he actually actually knowing how to engineer a suit.
Right.
The step-by-step instructions on how to engineer the super suit. It's tough. I get it.
Yeah.
But thankfully Loebs doesn't have to do that here. He decides to go all out with the Riddler being a joke.
Maybe some of that is because of the fact he has to do this like every week. So he's just like, look, there's no way I'm going to do this intricate, like really intellectual puzzle game thing. So I'm going to go with this route instead. And
what do you think he sounds like, Ben?
The Riddler?
Yes.
Are you thinking of doing a voice for him?
I am. I keep looking at this dog here. I kind of imagine this like sound effects and like music, like dum dum dum. But he's like, what is he saying? Like, ooh, stop, help! Oh, great! First the dog, now the wind. Sigh. Riddle me this: how is Eddie Enigma like an aluminum leg? Neither one can get a decent break. Wham wham.
Kind of sounds like Tom Kenny.
It's like so whiny. A little bit, I was thinking of Fry.
Yeah.
Well,
the entire time you're reading that, I just hear a sad trombone playing over and over in my head before you even did it. It's just that was the voice of the sad trombone.
He just looks so pathetic.
One of my favorite bits comes from this part. Zach, if you want to do the Riddler, I'll be Batman.
Oh yeah.
In this.
How did you ever find me?
Funny thing, when Robin disappeared, I began to search, and I asked myself, who else would build their secret headquarters in the shape of a question mark?
Too flamboyant. I knew it. I'm gonna kill that architect.
His face, man. He
That
looks
fucking,
like. What were we talking about? Those commercials,
Neanderthal.
the Zellers commercials.
Oh
With
yeah,
Batman's jaw, like.
Oh.
He looks like
Yeah.
an Earthworm Jim, like cartoon all of a sudden. Good lord.
Yep. So
Cut Zeller's
hilarious.
commercial.
That's funny
reference.
though.
Yep, we did it in a Patreon on all the Batman commercials.
Yeah.
So yeah, that totally is what it reminds me of. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. But yeah, this Riddler is just hilarious, and also has surprising amount of depth for being an idiot too. Because you'll see what happens at the end. I won't give it away, but it is interesting how they develop this version of him. Which leads into the final arc, which is the big finale. If the Trial of the Joker is like my favorite, maybe this is my second favorite, or maybe this is my favorite and Trial of the Joker is my second favorite, but this is definitely up there. And the final boss is the Mad Hatter, kind of.
Yes.
So this is really cool. It's this version of Mad Hatter is an Arkham Asylum inmate who ends up taking over the asylum, controlling the staff with hats. And we already have, as you saw, the two other cellmates in there. Two-Face and Joker are inmates in this assignment in the asylum. So the big finale is Batman going into Arkham, facing Joker, Two-Face, and Mad Hatter. And this turned into the final arc for the newspaper strip. And it's not so much what happens with Mad Hatter or with Joker, but there is basically, I don't know if Messner-Loebs knew that this was the finale on it, but it definitely feels like, hey, it's time to actually complete Harvey Dent's arc. His arc does not end with becoming Two-Face like so many other versions are, where it's just like, okay, he's Two-Face now, just make him go off and do a bunch of two themed crimes. Here he develops Two-Face, and we get a very unique take in terms of what happens with Harvey on here, that I believe, John, you say on your blog that you feel like the ending of this is how you wish The Dark Knight ended.
It is. I mean, the ending of this, man, I was prepared to go full spoilers, but I will.
Well,
I like the idea of keeping spoilers. So yes, come to my blog.
we'll do a spoiler specific section in a bit. That way we can do that. Yeah.
As far as I can tell, because as I had heard, distribution was drying up. So I think he knew the writing was on the wall, because it sure seems like it was able to wrap it up with enough time to do pretty much everything he wanted to do, at least where Batman and Harvey was concerned. The Joker himself doesn't get to do much other than the page you're showing here, where he gets brainwashed with a hat and gets punched out. There are hints in the strip of like a character who was probably Clayface.
Yeah.
He's this guy with a melting face who is quoting Shakespeare in his cell, and it seemed like it was setting up to be another villain for later arc. I assume it's meant to be Clayface, because who else would have a melty face while also being an actor?
Exactly, yeah.
I like that it's the
pretty good assumption right
Mad
there.
Hatter.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like
it's the
imposter
mustached
Mad Hatter as well.
Mad
like
Hatter.
the way he appears in
He's got the
Batman
the
66.
imposter design.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and he has an interesting origin too, where he's not related to Alice in Wonderland at all.
Yeah.
It's due to
Mhm.
the idea of Mad Hatters being created due to the Mercury and going mad due to the sort of what is it like the interference of other people, that type of thing, and how that ties into his own backstory of how he was screwed over as a businessman. So it's more of a thematic tie than just like, well, what other gimmick can we have today? Let's just make some Alice in Wonderland type dude. That guy looks evil. Let's do the Mad Hatter.
Yeah.
It also feels like a TAS origin. It feels like
Yeah.
reminiscent
Mhm.
of several villains who were, screwed over by some rich corporate, their boss or their rival or something. That's what this one feels like. He is plotting revenge against the people who drove him crazy and stole
Mhm.
his work, and at the same time going, "Hey, you know what? I'll just make myself king of Arkham Asylum. It's good to be the king." So
Yeah, exactly.
it's a
Which is-
very interesting take.
Yeah, and it's something where you're just like Mad Hatter takes over Arkham Asylum because you're used to like Joker taking over in the video game and that type of stuff, or maybe Scarecrow or Hugo Strange. But Mad Hatter is not the first person you think of. But then when you see it play out, I'm like, oh, this actually makes more sense than anyone else because of the hats,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because of the mind
Yeah.
control. So that's really great. So I do want to do kind of a spoiler section on the ending, but before we get to that, I want to sort of wrap it for the people who want the like lesser spoilers, which is kind of going into why is it then, we've gone through a lot of these. We have been directing people to Daily Batman, but why is the only way we can read these on your Tumblr?
That is a damn good question, and something I have been trying to find out for
Mhm.
years since I discovered these. For some reason, they just are never. They have not been reprinted, and while other Batman comic strips have been reprinted,
Mhm.
the Library of American Comics, which has published many different classic strips like Dick Tracy and Peanuts, they have been publishing the 60s Batman comic strips, which were another totally forgotten thing I had never heard of
Mhm.
until around the same time. And so I wrote to the editor in chief there and asked if there would be any plans or potential to publish the 89 to 90 Batman comics. And he said he'd love to, but DC has not given him the go ahead. That DC is basically, I got the impression they're saying no to it. So I was wondering, well, who has the rights? Could it
Mhm.
be the newspaper syndicate or is it DC? I wrote to the newspaper syndicate. They said it was DC. And trying to write to DC has been impossible. First of all, trying to find likely people who could possibly know this is impossible. But even if you find
The
some
what
people,
strip? Yeah.
I mean, they probably have got lots of dweebs like me coming up saying, "Hey, can you publish this thing I wanted? My very favorite comic. Can you have a hardcover edition of this one issue at one time? Please." So I get it. I understand my status is not worth acknowledging, but the short version is I just truly don't know why it's not being published. Which is especially sad to me because about Bill Messner-Loebs.
Yep.
Because he is a writer who has gone through a number of personal issues.
Mhm.
To the point that there was a benefit in his name several years ago.
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything, but I mean, it's obvious from the picture he's missing his right hand, right?
And that's not even. That's the thing. I think he's had that since childhood.
Okay,
but that's not even part of his current health problems.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a basically from what I've read up. Unfortunately, in 2018, Bill Messner-Loebs stated that he was homeless and started a GoFundMe. And this is the image of that. At a certain point, he became a delivery driver for Panera for a few years, as well as a janitor for a local church. Keep in mind, this is Bill.
How did this happen? You have any info on that?
Whatever it would be in the GoFundMe, but pretty much it sounds like a lot of unfortunate events happened. with illnesses as well as losing his home. It's all sort of on the GoFundMe page on that. And well, we do have some good news because we did intend to donate to the GoFundMe only to find that the donations were paused. We don't know if this is related to that, but in digging into, okay, what's another way to contact Bill Messner-Loebs to say like, hey, like we're interested in doing it. We found that more recently he's gotten into commissions and independent comics. So he is an artist. He's gone into commissions. And we'll post the links to these in our YouTube description in the show notes. But to support Bill, you can buy commissions as well as follow the Facebook group of fans of William Messner-Loebs, as well as a YouTube channel that he has called Yeet Presents that goes into these. But this is a guy who had the ideas that we talked about earlier on, where it's Harvey Dent and Bruce Wayne as friends. Harvey Dent on the Gotham City rooftop with Gordon and Batman that we'd see in Dark Knight. The two-headed coin being significant to Harvey and not just being the Boss Maroni thing. The return of the Red Hood. Batman throwing coins at Two-Face with his wife/fiance comforting him. These are all things that would end up showing up in Batman the Animated Series with the Nolan films or the comics. And maybe they didn't actually, those people weren't directly influenced by it, but it was still a case where this man went way, he didn't just understand the assignment, he went beyond the assignment on this one and created one of probably the best Two-Face origins and a really in-depth look into Batman's world that had no business being this good for a newspaper comic strip. So that's why I thought it was important to bring up other ways to support somebody who played such a significant role that we should be at least mentioning him in the same way that we mention other Batman writers like Frank Miller or Paul Dini or Scott Snyder or Jeff Loeb or all the others that we constantly mention, even when they had like only maybe one or two major Batman stories, we still talk about them. Well, this guy had, at least a couple years worth of that on this run of that. So check those out. Again, we'll have the descriptions in the links below. But that is, those are the stuff that I wanted to share on Bill Messner-Loebs. Did you have more to add on that?
No, not
John?
me. No, I'm good. That was great.
Awesome. So we're going to do a quick tangent, well, not really a tangent, but transition into spoiler territory here to talk about sort of the ending of what happens in Arkham Asylum for this. Sorry, Andrew, but you weren't going to read it anyway. So we're just going to go into it.
He knows you well.
Fine.
Yeah, so if you're on YouTube, you can just skip to the part, to the comment section, or you can go to Daily Batman, read the whole thing, then come back and listen to this discussion. So
before I wanted to actually, I think it's Batman/Daily at Batman/Daily.tumblr.com. I'm not sure if you said that it was that the actual.
Well, I was calling it Daily Batman because that's what the title is, but it is as we can see here. The URL for those who are listening in and aren't able to see it is batman-daily.tumblr.com.
I just wanted to clarify because I made that way more confusing than it had to be.
It's the Daily Batman, but it's at batman-daily.tumblr.
Yes.
Also, make sure to start from the final page if you want to start from the beginning. I posted them like a strip in the blog form once a day. Mm-hmm. So this is another reason I'd love to have this actually collected, because the way I have them posted here is not the best way to read it. And I originally had them all posted in order on my blog, but I took them on the live journal, but I took them down because I would like to, do what I can to make an actual collection of this happen. I'd love to see this published as it should be. Mm-hmm. Book. Yeah. Absolutely. It would be a lot easier for me to find, or people in general to find the specific like story arcs and just flip through it, and especially if they reprint the color versions of them. So that'd be really great, I think.
I should mention, I actually have since I posted those, I was able to acquire all of the Color Sundays.
Oh, nice.
I managed to find Color Sunday reprints of them all. I just haven't scanned them. But yeah, so I have a complete collection of the strips that I will be hopefully rescanning, or fingers crossed. I mean, I would be very happy to donate these to be in a collection if they don't have them handy anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, here's the Clayface on that. So we have not just Joker and Two-Face in Arkham, but we got Penguin, a Catwoman that looks very unlike the Catwoman we met in the Max Allan Collins and Marshall Rogers arc, and then we got Clayface saying the classic "to be or not to be."
Man, I love that
So-
penguin. They sure did love
Yep.
giving them some big old teeth and jaws.
I know, right?
That's actually another thing I wanted to bring up is that Carmine Infantino
Mhm.
was not a fan of this strip.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
In one of those I think alter ego collections or comic book artist magazine, they interviewed him and he did not like the strip. He thought the scripts were terrible, and you can actually see him getting lazier as the strips go on, which is another sad thing about these strips is that you get the chins jutting out, and there are always characters with these huge long pointy mustaches like Abracadabra from the Flash, which was an Infantino design.
Yeah, of course.
The Abracadabra mustache keeps popping up in characters all throughout. I just got a strong sense of Infantino just getting his paycheck, waiting for the strip to run out, and getting ready to leave. And I mean, he's entitled to his opinion, man. He was an editor. He knew his comics, but I can't agree. I disagree with the experienced legendary Batman artist editor.
Well, Andrews always wanted to frame him as the bad guy mobster, just given his name. So we now have.
There's no
this
way
is
he
now
doesn't have
complete.
mob ties. He must have mob ties. I mean, the early comics world was kind of a mafia. It was partially mafia driven or something.
There's talk about that. I've heard about the mafia maybe owning the printing plates.
Yeah,
but nothing substantiated.
Alan Moore seems to make some claims concerning this as well. Yeah.
Who knows? Who I'm waiting for someone to talk before they're all dead.
So we're gonna do our contact information at the end as well. But let's just say a DC representative is watching this and they're going to turn it off soon. So how can a DC rep contact you? Yeah. How can a DC rep contact you to get in touch about making this?
Well, let's see. I have a work email and I have my Tumblr, which they could reach me through. But Tumblr is kind of a persona non grata in the blog world, so I don't know if anyone would be up for that. I'm available on Twitter on about faces on Twitter.
Okay.
And you could get me through Tumblr, and I would certainly hope that'd be enough. Maybe I'll keep the business email to myself. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll just keep that out. That's enough. They can direct message you on Twitter.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's go into a little bit of this ending here for those who've already read it or just want to know what else happens in it. We have Batman disguising himself as Two-Face.
I like this Two-Face
in this. Look at how huge that mouth is on Two-Face, by the way. This Infantino phoning it in as John was saying.
Man. It's so silly.
Yeah, as like I said, phoning it in, you can see how going from that detailed, grotesque Two-Face to he just kind of like big mouth, some lines.
Yeah.
There. I love the story so much, I'm willing to overlook it.
He's got a big cauliflower ear too.
Yeah,
it's from getting punched so much by Batman in that arc. So what? And this is wild. I'm not really sure how Messner-Loebs comes to this, but I do love it. Basically, Two-Face and Batman switch places in this because Batman pretends to be Two-Face in order to get to Mad Hatter, and Two-Face is left with the Batsuit. And when he finds out that Batman is in trouble, he's like, "What do? I need to basically get out of the situation with Mad Hatter." And he looks at the cowl and he says, "Well, Zach, do you want to do a Two-Face voice?"
You want me to do the whole thing?
Just the last two panels that are very significant to Batman fans.
Criminals are a cowardly and superstitious lot. I shall become a bat.
So Two-Face becomes Batman, and Batman becomes Two-Face.
You're gonna be able to see his fucking the bottom of his fucking face. Anyway,
it's
no.
turn.
There was no. He does. He seriously does. Not in the panel before this. He does the Bela Lugosi double from Planet 9 in Outer Space thing. Remember how Bela Lugosi died while filming Planet 9 from Outer Space? So pulled the mask up over his face and then to only the top of his head.
Okay, I guess that works.
So he did that. Of course, now he's just there with his cape hanging out, and so it shouldn't it shouldn't work. But who cares? The shadow favors that Two-Face.
I do kind of love any sort of Two-Face pretends to be Batman type of thing, because we also got that in that Brave and the Bold episode that Gail Simone wrote of the Matches Malone. So I'm like, this is really, really cool because of the fact that I feel like Two-Face is kind of like another representation of somebody who is like Bruce Wayne but went in a different direction. So to have this brought up is really interesting, and I think it's cool because of the fact that he's the one who's most capable of redemption, in spite of what a lot of writers do of him. But he is the one who's supposed to be the most capable of redemption. That he's the one that you realistically see donning the bat suit to help out Batman, and not just pretend to be Batman and cause more chaos and terror on this. So this is great. And then we get hold on, I skipped ahead.
Oh no.
It looks like, but let me get to. I'll search around for the panel on this, but let's discuss then the fact that a lot of what Bill Messner-Loebs is trying to do is redeem Harvey. And I think that's something that we haven't really seen since the 40s. The Two-Face trilogy.
No, I don't. I think this was the first time since 1943 that Harvey was someone actually decided to make a redemption stick, because I feel like they realized when they redeemed him the first time that you couldn't have Two-Face around as a villain anymore, and they wanted to keep that villain.
Yeah.
So they just decided to bring him back, and they got rid of anything that might have made him redeemable, like Gilda, his wife, being around to pull him back to the side of the angels. And they even killed him off like twice in the 70s, just cause Len Wein killed him off and Bob Haney killed him off, and he was fine next month, but no one quite they wanted to have him be a villain. And so the whole idea of him being redeemable just sort of fell to the wayside as far as DC was concerned until Messner-Loebs. And the thing is, I think it's because they were getting canceled. Because the strip that was ending, he went, you know what? We're ending anyway. Let's just give it to him. Let's do it. Shoot the works.
So here it is, where Batman confronts Dent, and Dent flips the coin and ends up saying the coin doesn't actually mean anything. And Batman takes off his mask to reveal that he's actually Harvey's best friend. And it ends with Batman comforting a fallen Harvey Dent on here, which is an image we just have not seen.
Yeah.
We just never get to see this.
No.
Especially for his villains. No, Two-Face is disfigured. He can't be good. So
he's a disfigured man. I'm just gonna kick him around and punch him.
This is a hell of a way to end it. And we have basically, it seems like Harvey is somewhat cured by the end. His face is going to get fixed, and it ends with sort of the redemption of Harvey. It doesn't really end so much with a major character development of Batman or any of the villains. It ends with the fulfillment of Harvey's character.
I think because what makes it really powerful is that Batman shows a sense of vulnerability that he never can do in the ongoing comics, because that just changes the dynamic so much. Unless you give Two-Face amnesia later on, like Riddler style.
Right.
Give him
Right.
We'll just sweep that under the rug. But
I forgot your secret identity. Yeah.
Whoops. Back to business as usual.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It's the problem is that in this situation, you kind of want to keep the status quo business-wise. So I understand it, but also it cripples stories in a way. That's why it's kind of like it's almost a good thing that it was canceled at this point, because we were able to get this part.
Yeah, for the few people who still had the newspaper syndicated to them, who actually would have read it.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that whenever I would look up someone talking about the strip, they only would remember like the Max Cons and Marshall Rogers stuff, and fewer would remember the stuff that came subsequently. So I feel like that came out to like a tiny little audience of crickets before it was quietly canceled.
Yeah.
So this to me is one of the most moving and surprising and bold endings I've ever seen for a Two-Face story, and nobody read it.
Yeah, and it's in a Sunday comic strip that nobody can read except on Tumblr. So it's like it's insane that this quality is presented in this medium, as I keep saying. So that is pretty much what, that's pretty much our coverage on the original Batman 89 sequel comic, the Sunday or the daily comic strips from Bill Messner-Loebs, Max Allan Collins, Marshall Rogers, Carmine Infantino, and John Nyberg. And that is superhero stuff you should know.
All right.
We have a few comments, fan comments for us to go over. So let's jump right into it. So our first comment comes from somebody named King Chasma. So I'll pull it up right here. King Chasma says, I had the first Batman 89 Batman, and my brother had the Joker. He's talking about the Kenner action figures. So this is a comment for you, Zach.
Hey.
I used its extendable belt to hang him from a pole in my closet. Sadly, he got loose and fell, and when he hit the floor, its head broke clean off. It's very tragic. I was so sad my brother threw his Joker to the floor, and it broke like glass. These figures were really delicate and cheaply made. The Batman Returns ones were much better.
I read that comment today, and good Lord, do they have bootlegs? Mine have lasted a long time. What floor are they playing on?
Super strong, man. The super strong kids.
I think
you're survived being dragged through the brick when falling down. I don't know.
That's right.
I think my Joker, like the Toy Biz Joker, the one who squirted water out of the lapel, I think his arm fell off. Or maybe I'm thinking of the Toy Biz Riddler. One of their arms fell off.
Yeah.
But the falling apart to that extent, I mean, damn.
Yeah.
He's talking about the superpowers figures, and I can admit, so I've got the loose superpowers Joker and the loose Toy Biz Joker, many of them. And the loose superpowers one feels a little lighter. I think it may be a thinner plastic, or it's possible a cheaper plastic, but it doesn't feel as like weighty and hefty as the Toy Biz Joker. So I'm not sure, as far as like what the process was and what plastics were used, but I kind of see what he's saying. I never was quite that rough with my toys, but
hey,
yeah.
I have a 10-year-old. They can be rough with the toys. I understand. I get it.
Yeah, I just treasured my toys so much, other than like I told Ben, like when I scraped their faces against the brick wall to reenact Jack Nicholson falling off of the cathedral. So a little too rough.
Yeah. Of course, I think they maybe in some way they're just like, yeah, but that just means that they'll come back to the store and get another one type of thing at that time. So that's probably the thinking on that. But yeah, thank you, King Chasma.
Yeah.
Next person is a really long comment. This is for you, Andrew, on the Superman video game. This is from C-Mac.
Shit.
Says, I love Superman and have been thinking about how a good game could be made for several years. I think the reason people get Superman games wrong is because they think they need to fight super strong enemies and guys of kryptonite because Superman is invincible and all that. I would do it differently. I don't think people realize that's not really Superman's weakness. Superman's real weakness is that he cares about humanity. Already there's more understanding here in this comment than a lot of people with Superman. You have to make a game system where the player is forced to approach each enemy a certain way. You have to limit your powers. So here's how I would start it. You start playing as Superman, then as people go crazy and start throwing cars, killing people, smashing things, and ruining the city, the voice of Jor-El would come in and say, my son, you have fallen away from your destiny. And as you rack up your wanted meter or something like that, you lose hero points. Eventually, if you go crazy, Martian Manhunter would shoot you and take away your abilities.
Oh.
You then cut to a scene of a world without Superman, and the player would realize how critical it is to be good. Eventually, by saving people with no power, you can restore your Superman status. This is really fascinating. Each mission or encounter would be subject to this condition. So if you have to deal with some thug, Superman says, I can't kill them, just knock them out. Different enemies would require conditions. So by following this way, you would get hero points, which would translate into new moves and items for taking down enemies. So it would be like you got to buy new moves to take out thugs quickly, and each mission could have a timer that you can actually see. Everything in Superman movies and shows seems to have a racing clock, like 10 seconds to smack away all the bullets, like 5 minutes to stop the bomb, 20 minutes to get Lois without breaking through so many walls. Superman's challenge isn't that he's allergic to kryptonite, but that he cares about whether he destroys buildings or messes up and people die. The challenge becomes the player's ability to figure out how to solve the problem, not how Superman is OP. As people die or he breaks things, the Daily Planet can report on it, and he can lose more points, which is currency for all kinds of stuff. Maybe like, sorry, my eyes are just completely shot right now looking at this. Maybe like favor or charm to get the inside scoop on another story or mission, and then eventually you can add in kryptonite bad guys and Superman can unload it with full force. If you smash a bunch of stuff, Clark Kent issues charm or loses charm, and when he asks about the next mission, no one tells him. Superman could be a great game, but you can't assume that Superman has to kill everybody.
Okay. Thanks for that, for putting that in this episode, Ben. Yeah, so
I'm going to put in eye drops.
Okay, go ahead. I'll talk while you do that. So I like this aspect of it being a fight that you have to figure out in a puzzle way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't personally like the Dark Souls series that much and the Bloodborne because it's just so fucking hard. But there is something, and well, I do like Shadow of the Colossus, but all three of those games, there is a little bit of like, it's not just a hack and slash. You really have to figure out, I have to roll this way, or the enemy winces at this point. Like it's a strategic hack and slash, I guess you could say, and they're known to be very hard because you die like a shitload before you figure out how to beat the character, or the enemy. So if they were to kind of, incorporate that kind of strategic fighting in a Superman game, that would be really cool. I hadn't thought about it. They call it the Soulsborne genre now because Dark Souls and Bloodborne created this kind of subgenre that's been popular for the past 5 or 6 years. And if they made Superman a Soulsborne game, that would be that'd be cool. This is a good idea from this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So thank you for leaving that comment, C-Mac. And then on to the last one, Joe Effect 10. This is on our What You Didn't Know About Superman 78 Part 5. He says, you guys plan to cover Superman 2 and the Donner Cut? Yes, we do. It's just going to be a lot of work. That one's been in the oven for a while.
It's been in the hopper, man. It's in the hopper. Don't even worry about it.
That's one that I'm sure you guys could make 2-hour podcasts on. We're trying to cut down on this stuff, Joe Effect 10. Overall, both movies have their pros and cons, but if I take Donner Cut for what it is and a product of its time, it's in my top 3 live-action Superman movies. Although Smallville still has the best Luthor I've ever seen yet. In my opinion, best Luthor origin could be another solid ep. That could be interesting too. We did do kind of a Lex Luthor deep dive for the whole Jesse Eisenberg thing, but it could be interesting to explore more of Lex Luthor. We've definitely been exploring different ideas of how to continue doing some Superman coverage. So thank you for that. And I think that is it for the comments. Over to Andrew.
Oh man, thank you for those comments, y'all. And we want to thank our Patreon subscribers, who are Shasta Leom O, Super Infoman, Douglas P. Dandy, Aaron Willett, Nick Noir, Jesse E., Jeffrey R., Scott V., Asgers Webb, Jeremy H., Alex of the What Mean Podcast, Ian Justice, Jared P., and Paul C. Then our other supporters, who include Spark It Gettin', STCT Productions, Robert Schumann, Kooky Knobs, Matt Herring, Elijah B., Shamrock Balls, Ian H., Walter the Wobot, John Wells, Rye Guy, Jackson Putnam, and Tway N. Then, thank you guys for that. And hold on, let me click out of this shit. And then, all right, so join our Patreon, and you can be on this list if you join the $1 tier. And then if you pay the $5, you get on that tier as well. But plus, you get a whole other show every Friday, and it's deep dives and extra commentary and stuff like that. It's a complete, it's double the fun. So every Friday.
Oh yeah.
Because this show's every Monday. So there you go. And then we have a monthly live show tier. That's where you can interact with us live, and while we basically react. Mystery Science Theater 3000 style, all together, having fun to various Batman things and other comic things. But of course, Batman's going to take priority. And then please check out our Redbubble store, superhousepod.redbubble.com and superherostuffpod.threadless.com. It's going to happen someday, but the Zacula Joker is coming.
Halloween 2023.
It's coming. Yes,
Let's
it's coming.
see him.
So Bandana and T-Wizard mugs, shirts, shower curtains, and whatever. Artwork by Wolfie Cruz. Check that out and get your merch there. And also, please send us an audio clip of whatever you want and send that to superhousepodcast@gmail.com. And also, please animate our sketches and hashtag it in the corner somewhere. And just let us know that you did it. Don't animate and then not tell us.
Yes.
Please tell us. But yeah, so yeah, there you go. And then I'm Thunderwolf Drew on Instagram and Twitter. Thunderwolf lives on YouTube with my other more Japanese culture and gaming kind of content there. And thunderwolfdrew.com has my portfolio all in one place, except for amanorecon.com. That's AMANORECON.com. That is a short film that I'm working on now. And it's going to be an Indiegogo thing that's like Kickstarter, but it's Indiegogo's a little bit better for short films, and we're going to do a campaign for funding for a larger project. The project and the poster is by Zach, by the way. Thanks again, Zach. A fucking sweet ass poster. Yeah. And think R-rated Stranger Things mixed with Power Rangers and X-Files. Now, it is not a fan film of any of those things. It's an original idea, but if I want to get it across to you quickly, that's my elevator pitch. So check that out. Again, it's AMANORECON.com. Ben?
A shout out to Comic Capital on Instagram, as well as the Everything Entertainment Club on Clubhouse. You can follow us on social media at Twitter on SuperhousePod, Instagram at Superhero Stuff Pod, TikTok at Superhero Stuff Pod, Vero at Superhero Stuff Pod if you're a Snyder fan.
Do you hear me?
Yeah. My website is benwanwriter.com. My YouTube channel is in the description below and has thumbnails by Zach himself. There's also Early Bird. Early Bird is an upcoming kids comic, potentially more. And it is in the style of Batman 66 type stuff, but with original characters. So you check that out. And Dr. Jimson is in it. Yes. So
MD.
Just look at him.
At earl-e-bird.com.
Just look at him.
He's more of a scientist. He's more of a PhD, Zach.
Okay.
So my personal
official.
Yes, my personal Instagram is Ben Wan Writer. My cat's Instagram, my son's Instagram is Alfie Pennyworth Cat. If you want to follow a ginger cat with an Alfred theme, and if you also have an Alfie or some sort of cat of your own, then get Whiskerbox. We have our own promo code or link for Whiskerbox in our affiliates link, and if you have a cat, then you can get them a special box of treats every month. And if you don't have a cat and you have a dog, then that's okay too, because we have basically Barkbox. We are covered on either dogs or cats on this, so
we got all the bases covered.
Yeah, we got the links. Except we don't have Bubble
Box.
Yeah, no Bubble Box for your fish. Sorry, that's in the link. We got bidets, but we don't have Bubble Box.
We're slanging bidets too.
Yeah. So you can use the link that we described in the promo, and you can get your first month off, valued at $35 for Barkbox to get your dog another special box of treats each month. And all that stuff is at superherostuffpod.com/shop, where you can also find other links for the merchandise stuff that Andrew was talking about, the days for your hiney, eBay stuff for Batman action figures, different Amazon affiliate links. All that stuff is at superheropod.com/shop. Over to Zach.
Well,
it'd be cool if Barkbox started to carry the fucking
interrupt Zach's intro.
Sorry, the Burt Ward shit.
Go ahead, Andrew. Go ahead.
I just said it.
I missed it.
The Burt Ward fucking shit should be on Barkbox. Gentle Giant should be on Barkbox.
Gentle Giants up there, Ben. We'll get Burt Ward on here one day.
Zach?
Well, if you'd like to see more of my artwork, not just what's featured in our thumbnails, you can go to ZacharyJacksonBrownArt.com, and you can also find me on Instagram, on TikTok, and on YouTube's. Just look up Zachary Jackson Brown Art.
Yep. And to our guest, John, bring up some of the things that people can find you on. So we got Daily Batman, but we've also got About Faces, right?
Yeah, About Faces is my main Two-Face blog. It's about-faces at tumblr.com. I've also been dipping my toe for a brief time back on the LiveJournal one, if anyone is brave enough to return to the abandoned playground that is the haunted abandoned playground that is LiveJournal. I've started posting.
It's still around?
It's still around. It's just really Russian.
It's Russian now.
Well, yeah, it's been that for years and years.
Did you have a Zanga?
Do you update my old blog there for? Oh man, Zanga.
And that was the pre-live journal. That's going way back.
I mean, there was Usenet, even before, but no, I've been updating the old live journal. If anyone wants to see some of the old archives, but mainly stick to about-faces at tumblr.com or about-faces at Twitter, where I am only now starting to actually crawl to Twitter and figuring out how to become comfortable with it. So that's probably where I'm going to have to just resign myself to getting used to being, mostly. But I still will stick by Tumblr until it dies.
You got to hit up MySpace sometime. I feel like that's the next big thing.
MySpace.
We'll make it at some point. And then, of course, Batman-daily.tumblr.com.
Yep, that's where the strip currently lives until such time as will hopefully be published. In which case, if DC asks me to, I will take it down quite happily if it ever gets published.
Awesome. All right, and with that is it. That is the original '89 sequel comic.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yep, thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
it was a pleasure. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
And I want you to do us a favor.
I want you to tell all your friends about us. See ya.
Superhero Stuff You Should Know is part of the Greenlit Podcast Network.